Riding through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. Yeah, we're lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page, but we still read that book, and we still run that race. Ay. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Ay. Red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. Whether you're watching us live on Facebook, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, or live on Roku TV, thanks to the fine people over at Northeast Sports Productions. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you on a Tuesday, sir?
Doing well on a Tuesday. Doing well. Never had a bad day.
Never had it. See, that's what my guy Mo says. Never had a bad day. Mo, it was wild yesterday and over the weekend in the WNBA. It is turned into a circus. There's multiple reasons why it has turned into a circus, and we're going to touch on a couple of them right now. So I wasn't here yesterday morning, so I don't know if you and Gene got into this, but even if you did, we're going to get into it a little more.
We did, and I know where you're going, but you know what? It's such a complicated and interesting topic because any other league at any other time in a certain way, it would have been like, man, it's kind of jacked up, and we would have moved on. But there are so many layers to this, so I'm here for it.
So over the weekend was the play aspect. Over the weekend was the flagrant. That wasn't a flagrant. Over the weekend was Caitlin Clark's teammates not coming to her defense. Over the weekend was the taunting as Caitlin Clark was lying on the ground by the other players and the other team. Over the weekend was the coach of Chicago coming out and saying, we don't play like that. That is not us. Acknowledging that something inappropriate took place that shouldn't have taken place. That was all over the weekend. Then we get into yesterday, and we get into a really awkward exchange on First Take between Stephen A. Smith and his female co-host, whose name I cannot think of right now.
Monica McNutt.
Yes, Monica. And Stephen A. Smith basically gets on his soapbox and he goes, who covers the WNBA more than we do? All we do is talk WNBA here. And Monica lets him speak. And when he takes a breath, Monica goes, where was that energy 2 years ago? Where was that energy 3 years ago? Great. You talk about it a lot today, but she wanted to know where was the energy 7 months ago, 8 months ago, 14 months ago, when you couldn't even find a WNBA clip on First Take more than 3 or 4 times for the entire calendar year, much less 3 or 4 times a week. Then yesterday, we have Pat McAfee go into a completely different stratosphere when he dedicated a 12-minute segment on his show. I believe he called it something to the effect of name the WNBA star, or name the WNBA rookie, or something like that. And the gist of that 12-minute segment was that if you look at he took 3. He took the 3 most talked about WNBA rookies right now, Caitlin Clark being one of them. And he took them and he said he took every measurable WNBA thing that's happening right now, attendance, ratings, ticket sales, on the court performance. And he threw up 3 circles every time he brought up a new topic. And clearly the panel, his panel, they were in on it, right? They were saying, oh, no, it can't be Caitlin Clark for this. And obviously It was Caitlin Clark every time. And he's taking the notion of, all the time we sit here, Mo, and we say Caitlin Clark and the rest of the rookie class. Caitlin Clark and the up-and-coming superstars of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark and the young superstars of the WNBA. And his point was, there's no need for an and. This is happening right now because of her. And he got beat up a little bit afterwards for it, rightfully so. It isn't just because of Caitlin Clark. But, Mo, I'm a big believer, and this is where we're going to start today. I'm a big believer in two things can be right at the same time. I'm a big believer in, although I don't think Pat McAfee delivered his message in the most articulate way, I don't think he was completely wrong. If you look at what's happening in the WNBA right now, would it be very foolish to say that it is all only because of one individual? Well, yes, it would be foolish. Because if you look at the WNBA rankings over the past couple of seasons, when the Las Vegas Aces have been doing their thing, the ratings have been up. The ratings have been rising. Now, obviously, we're in a new stratosphere right now when you put Caitlin Clark into the situation. But, Mo, couldn't you just argue that Caitlin Clark is gas on the fire? The fire was already lit. The fire was already burning. Now, Caitlin Clark is literally burning the entire room down because you're literally pouring an entire can. Now, you know what I'm talking about, the squeezy gasoline.
Right.
From a distance because you know it's going to be the huge fireball.
I've done that.
What Caitlin Clark is on the WNBA right now. So I get it when people want to be like, don't act like there wasn't already a fire here. Don't act like, there weren't already good storylines in the WNBA. But Mo, I look at that and I say, I hear you, but can't we put a parallel up, and can't we be like, you could have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows you got it, do you really have it? And I think that's what the WNBA is going through right now. People are upset because they're like, we were already good. We were doing just fine. It's not just her. We were doing okay. But Mo, who knew? Who knew what you had? And now what you're seeing is a bunch of people are finding out. And of course, they're naive to what was already there, Mo, because they weren't there. When a bunch of people show up at the house party and they're like, oh, the party started because we're here, and the other 40 people are like, nah, it was popping off before you got here. We're like 4 hours in. Like, it was already
right.
You didn't bring the party. The party was already happening, but they don't know because they just arrived. And when they arrived, it felt bigger. So they're like, we brought the party. So all these people who never watched the WNBA before, they're rolling in with Caitlin Clark, and they're like, wow, it's popping off because of her. Mo, it's just like the 90s when everybody rolled in with Tiger, and they're like, oh, golf. Look at golf. Golf's a thing right now. And all the old heads were like, it was always a thing, sir. Put on some correct pants and let's have a conversation about it. We were already popular, sure, in your own inner circles, Grandpa. But now you got 20-somethings who are coming into the golf game that weren't here 3 months ago. And it's because of Tiger. Mo, isn't it the same conversation we were having? Granted, Caitlin's not having the success out of the gate that Tiger had out of the gate. I'm not comparing the athlete. I'm comparing the situation. I understand golf existed before Tiger and people watched it. I understand the WNBA existed before Caitlin Clark and people watched it. But in both situations, you just dumped gasoline onto the fire, and now it's huge. And that's where we are.
I think she came in with all the accolades and all the attention that she had built up over her time in college. Like, women's college basketball was already popular, but when she elevated, when she stepped in, she actually brought that up, right? Like, there are a lot of great players. I'm not here to debate that, but she didn't just bring it up. She was recognized as the best player, right? As she was coming up. I think she took all that energy into her WNBA career. And the conversation has been raging. It's kind of bananas because you don't think it would be that big a deal, and it's blown up because I think it opened up other avenues of conversation. When I was listening to the debate the other day, when you heard Stephen A. Smith, when you heard Shannon Sharpe, the way they were talking, look, we're guys, but the way they were talking, they were like mansplaining the situation. Like, it isn't as simple as saying, like, everybody's coming to see her, and that's the way it is. You just got to live with it. She's bringing in money. Why are you mad at her? Love her. She's bringing in money. That's true. It is true. She has taken what you, like you said, the fire was burning, and she came in, and now it's raging. Like, it's raging where somebody's yelling like, "That's a fire! Put that out! Somebody put that out!" And I think both things are true, right? She has helped elevate the WNBA. I don't think there's no question. And at the same time, are there established stars? I'm talking about great players, not good players in the WNBA, but great players who are looking around, and there's a frustration from them. Like, we were here all this time, and she's pretty good, but she's not better than any of us. Why is she getting this kind of love? Like, why aren't we getting the love, or why haven't we been getting that love? And I understand that. And they completely, I don't think them being frustrated is a negative. They should be frustrated. But that's more to me about they should be frustrated with the WNBA and how they don't market well. They don't elevate their stars well. What they saw was they saw Caitlin Clark and they go, this is somebody we can latch on to because she's bringing in people, Chris, and you can appreciate this. She's bringing in people that don't even like basketball, that don't even care for basketball. She's bringing in casual fans. You and I both, if somebody asked us to talk the nuances of golf, I don't know what the hell you want me to say, man. I think you use the club. I kind of like that one that's really thick and powerful, but I'm pretty sure you don't use it for putting. We don't know, but if Tiger's playing, we're watching. And I've always watched women's basketball, but I've been casual about it. Caitlin Clark has made me watch game after game after game in a row in a way that nobody has done before. That's not a negative. That's a positive. So here's the thing. She's uplifted the league. You can't disagree with what she's brought in terms of ratings, in terms of just the casual fan embracing the WNBA. And yet I understand the frustration of established stars. I think there's a what you call a faction of players out there who are just out and out jealous of Caitlin Clark. I think for whatever reason, there's certainly a faction, but I don't think you can lay a blanket over the entire league and say, well, they don't like Caitlin Clark. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more complicated than just saying like they don't like her and everybody wants to hurt her or impede her way to success. I think it's broken down into factions. There's some people that'll be jealous no matter what the case is, no matter what she does, how well she plays. And then there's others that just feel like they weren't acknowledged. They've been playing the game their whole life at a high level, at the highest level, and nobody has acknowledged them the way that she's being acknowledged. So I do think there's a fairness in being frustrated. I don't think it's right though when someone out and out does a cheap shot. There's rookie hazing when you play basketball or any sport for that matter, right? To some level, they challenge the rookie. They come at the rookie within the bounds of the game. I'm good with that. That's part of the game. But when you make a point to just target somebody, you're not really playing basketball now. You're literally targeting somebody and putting all your efforts into, I guess, impeding that person's way to success. And the argument that Stephen A. and Shannon Sharpe was making is, why do you want her not to be any good? Look what she's doing. She's bringing in money and the revenue. And all. I agree with the fact that she's elevated the league. At the same time, if you're a veteran player that's been a superstar in that league for 5 years or more, and you don't have any endorsements, you don't have any deals, I understand your frustration. I love what Monica McNutt said yesterday to Stephen A. Smith when he was talking about nobody covers first, and she just blasted him and said, Stephen A., you're my guy, but all due respect, you could have been covering the WNBA for 3 years with your platform, and you hadn't been doing it. And his eyes got big and his mouth opened up. He's like, wow, oh, you coming for me like that? But everything she said was true. Everything she said was true. He's all of a sudden the WNBA's biggest defender. And like you said, they don't run any reels on First Take about the WNBA. If you ask Stephen A. to name the top 10 players in the WNBA, no chance he gets that right. No chance. He doesn't get 5 of those ladies right. So I love what she said. It is a complicated debate to a degree, but one thing that's not debatable is that Caitlin Clark, whether you love it, whether you hate it, she literally moves the needle, period.
And I think the other thing we have to remember is that sports is a combination of entertainment and empathy. And we're going to become a slightly awkward here and uncomfortable, but I think it needs to be said. Obviously, race has been a driving force behind this conversation, okay? Race does play a role in it. I don't think it's the deciding role, but again, I think you can acknowledge multiple things being right at the same time. Where did Caitlin Clark play her college basketball? Iowa. Where does Caitlin Clark play in the WNBA? Indiana. She is playing in the middle of the country. She is playing in the Midwest. She had a Midwest upbringing. Let's look at Caitlin Clark compared to the rest of the league. Caitlin Clark is a straight white woman, okay? If you put her up and you juxtapose her against the rest of the NBA, you could easily, and I'm just saying, you could easily just say she is an outlier. She is an outlier compared to the majority of the WNBA. That's fine. I think you can acknowledge all of those things. And I think you can acknowledge that people who they fall in line with straight white women, if they're looking at themselves and saying, hey, that's me, and they're following Caitlin Clark because that's them, Mo, I'm okay with that. Because isn't it the same thing that happened with Tiger? Couldn't you argue that a lot of the audience that Tiger brought into golf that had never watched golf before, that have never played golf before, but they're like, dude, one of us, oh, look at him, and they hate him for it, but he's so good. Isn't it the same conversation we were having back in 1999, where he was bringing in all these fans to a sport that many of these young athletes never in their life wanted to play or cared about for a moment? But then Tiger was doing Tiger, and they're like, whoo-hoo. And now they're there. Why? Because they feel represented. They feel like, oh, one of us is doing it now. I'm not saying you're right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's what sports is. You latch on to things that you relate to. And like, why do you like certain players? If you are a casual basketball fan and you don't have a team, but you got a couple of players you like, why? Because that player resonates you with some reason. All right. It may not be skin color. It could be upbringing. It could be where they came from. You both came from, a hard upbringing. You know their backstory. You resonate with that, right? Why do you like certain football players if they're not on your team? Because something about them resonates with you. I'm not saying everyone has to be on board with why Caitlin Clark resonates with them, because you get into murky waters there. You get into potentially hateful waters there with some people and some of their opinions. But at the end of the day, if an athlete resonates with you, you're going to be drawn to them. And if you're drawn to them, you are by default drawn to their sport. So, Mo, when we sit here and we say there are non-basketball fans who are in the WNBA right now supporting Caitlin Clark, it's 100% true. And when Caitlin Clark goes away in 7, 8, 9 years, they're going to go away too, because they were here for Caitlin Clark. Just like what happened with Tiger Woods in golf. Go back and look at the ratings. When Tiger was Tiger, golf ratings were supreme. What happened when Tiger had the accident? What happened when Tiger's personal life fell apart? What happened when Tiger wasn't Tiger anymore? The ratings took a dip. Now, is that because the game of golf suddenly became bad? Is that because there were no other good golfers in existence? No. They were there for Tiger. Same reason, Mo, when Tiger plays today in 2024, the ratings spike, because you and I come back because we're there for Tiger. That's not trying to belittle any of the race problems the WNBA currently has, because I'm sure there are some. Someone brought up a great question the other day. Why was Sabrina Ionescu on the cover of NBA 2K24 when there are easily a dozen players of color who are far better than she is, when she was essentially a role player when she got that opportunity? That's a great question, Mo. It's a conversation for another day. But that's a great question, and it's a valuable question. But we don't have to make everything about that issue. That issue is always going to be there. and it's always going to be a great issue, and it's always going to be something that is worth and should be talked about. But sometimes it's as simple as I see me and her, so I'm going to ride with her. And that's it. And Mo, I think a lot of people, and it started with Iowa. It's because, let me tell you, Mo, there ain't a lot freaking happening in Iowa. And people just started selling out Iowa basketball games. And you know what? They didn't do it before her, and they probably aren't doing it after her. And that doesn't mean that there weren't good quality players to play basketball at Iowa, but they weren't Caitlin Clark.
No.
So again, they saw something and they showed up. Just like in the WNBA, they feel something, it resonates, they relate, they show up. Just like with Tiger, they felt something, it resonated, they showed up. And sometimes, Mo, it can just be that. It doesn't have to be a million other things, even though for some people it is, but for other people, Mo, it isn't. For other people, it is, I think I can be her. I see part of myself in her. I support her. And there we are.
And I think that can be true. And I agree with pretty much everything you said. The thing about Tiger is, though, he wasn't just an outlier in terms of him being there. He was actually a great golfer.
Yeah, he was.
So he's not
the greatest.
Just right. He's also, you know what I'm saying? So he's also that. And I would say to people out there, you'd have to appreciate also the pressure that Caitlin Clark wakes up to every single morning. She didn't call herself the savior of the WNBA. She's kind of been marketed that way, but that wasn't of her doing. She came in with a lot of hype, and I think before she played her very first game or very first scrimmage, people had already made up their mind what she was or perceived her a certain way. And I'm one of those people. I'm rooting for her, but I'm rooting for her simply as a basketball fan who I think she's incredibly talented. And I hope she ends up being everything that a lot of people project her to be talent-wise. Because I already know, and you already know, I already know she's marketable. I already know that she moves the needle. But man, if she's the player that you and I think she is, moving the needle now won't be anything compared to what she does if she lives up to her actual abilities. Like, think about it, she just is really good. If she's a person that gives you 18 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, that's a very, very good player. And I think that would help her marketability. But if she looks like Caitlin Clark dropping 30, 6 and 6, she's going to skyrocket the league even more. Do you know what I mean? I mean, even more casual fans will be brought in. So I understand it's sports. You're supposed to be competitive. That is not your teammate. You're trying to beat them, outplay them. I'm here for all of that. But you bring up a great point. There is a component that it doesn't have to be about all the time, but there is a component there with race, and you wonder how many of those players, if asked an honest question, would they give an honest answer why the resentment is this way or that way? And I think that's where, like you said, it doesn't always have to be that way. But if you're saying it has nothing to do with that, I would think you're being a little dishonest.
I agree. All right, let's bring JG up in here. He's been patiently waiting backstage. We got baseball things to talk about this morning. JG, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, JG?
JG, we're going to start with injuries. We got a handful of people who are expected to come back from injuries in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm just going to rattle off those names, and I want you to tell me, in your opinion, who you think is going to have the biggest impact on their team. So I'm going to give you Garrett Cole with the New York Yankees. He's expected back from his elbow injury sometime this month. Trey Turner is expected back from his hamstring mid-June. Seems like a realistic timeline for him in the Phillies. Josh Jung is expected back with the Rangers. Eduardo Rodriguez is expected back with the Diamondbacks from his lat issue. Roy Royce is coming back from a quad. And even though the White Sox aren't very good, they are going to get maybe one of their best players back in Luis Roberts Jr. He is coming back from a hip injury. So let me go through those one more time, JG. Garrett Cole, Trey Turner, Josh Jung, Eduardo Rodriguez, Royce Lewis, and Luis Robert Jr. which of those could potentially have the biggest impact on their team if they come back as they are expected to come back? Healthy, productive, near what we expect them to be.
Well, the obvious one is because nobody expected the Yankees to be where they're at right now, especially when Gerrit Cole went down. No, you didn't. Nobody expected the Yankees to be competitive without the ace of the staff, because the big question mark was the pitching staff of the Yankees going into the season. And then you take Gerrit Cole off the roster for most of the first half. Everybody, including myself, at least I was hoping, would be that the Yankees would crash and burn without Gerrit Cole. But that has been the opposite. Now you throw in essentially what is like you just acquired an ace at the trade deadline, bringing in Cole back, and they're gonna manage him a little bit to make sure he stays healthy throughout the year. But you add that guy back into your rotation, it's a huge boost to the Yankees' opportunity to not just be competitive in the division, but be competitive in the American League as a top team in the league. So that's a huge, essentially an acquisition the Yankees are getting with Cole coming back and really putting that pitching staff on another level where I don't know if they keep pitching like they're doing and you throw in Cole. I don't know many pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball that can compete with the Yankees at the moment. And again, I hate saying that. I feel like I'm getting hives saying stuff like that, but I have to speak honestly and upfront about it, and it makes them very dangerous, especially with the way that offense has been hitting the ball over the beginning part of the year. Again, Trey Turner, adding him back is going to definitely be a boost to the Phillies, especially, again, the same thing. They've been playing really well. He's been out for a while. You throw an all-star caliber shortstop into the mix back, and it's just going to make things a little bit better for you there. Eduardo Rodriguez, I think, is very intriguing because that's a high-profile pitcher you added. The Diamondbacks, you haven't had him. Now you're getting him. So almost in a way, the same thing like I just talked about with Cole for the Yankees. Rodriguez coming back is the same thing, not to the same caliber, but it's the same, bringing in a pitcher at that level to your rotation to at least help be more competitive in the wild card of the National League. But when it's all said and done, Gerrit Cole coming back for the Yankees is going to be the most impactful return for anybody right now, just because, again, the pitching staff of the Yankees has been really good, and now you're throwing in one of the reigning Cy Young winner into the rotation again. It makes them very scary.
JJ, we talk often here about Vlad Guerrero Jr., and oftentimes when we speak about him, one of the things that pops up is his weight, his health, his size, his ability, whether or not he's in shape. And I think it's a fair conversation based on if you just look at him from a couple years ago to where he is now. Well, the Blue Jays did something the other day that they haven't done since 2019, and that's they allowed him to play some third base. Now, if you're a bigger guy and you're not the most athletic person on the field, and this is no slight on you, JG, but, if you're trying to hide someone and they don't have a lot of range or speed, you could say, well, we'll put you at first base. You're not going to be able to do anything off the bag, but hopefully you can just get to the bag, catch the ball, and we're going to move on. The hot corner at third, where you're playing into that hole with the shortstop can't get to, that's not usually the spot you're going to put someone. Now, we've seen best baseball of yesteryear where people have put bigger guys over there who have a quick glove, but that's all they really have going for them at third base. It's usually a power spot, but in recent years, we have seen more athletic third basemen that have speed and have range. What do you make of Vlad going back to third base? Obviously, it's not a long-term thing, but clearly, if you're looking at Vlad Guerrero and you're looking at, are they going to trade him? Are they not going to trade him? I don't think it's a coincidence that if he gets a handful more of starts at third base, because now you're putting into teams, oh, that's right, he can still play. Oh, God. Well, we don't have a first base need, but we could put him at, like, you're just kind of putting back into the forefront of teams' minds, he could be a good third baseman for you. Is that what we're seeing, JG? Are we just seeing the Blue Jays potentially reminding people that Vlad can man third base as well?
Yes and no. I actually believe, and I take to face value, they're saying they're not trading. It doesn't make sense to trade Vlad Guerrero Jr., and I kind of think that is the case. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to make that move unless somebody blows them away. it's probably more of a necessity that you don't have a third baseman that you can trust. And again, I said what you got, and thanks for the subtle shot at first base, and but the mindset that you can put anybody over at first base and just say, hey, go catch a ball. I hate that. I'm sorry. I'm going to digress on that because that makes me angry when I hear that. But if it's easier to find another first baseman than it is to find a quality third baseman, and they know there's history for Guerrero. And again, if he does well, he's listed at 245 pounds. Tell him in the offseason, hey, if you can get to 230, you can be a high quality third baseman. So I think it's more of a test for him that he can do it and be long-term value to the organization on the field. And then they can go and say, hey, maybe put it this way. I know pitching is the biggest question mark the Blue Jays have had for a very long time, but there's a first baseman in New York that's going to be available. Do you think the Blue Jays could say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can go get a bat at first base like a Pete Alonso? And I know that's a stretch. I know that's a very, very, very big stretch. But you can put somebody like that over at first base, move Guerrero to third, and your lineup got better. And so I think it's easier for them to say we have someone who has experience, and we can try to get him to lose the weight to be at 230 pounds, keep his power, but a little bit quicker, and say this is your value now when you're at. And we'll go get somebody to plug in at first base and be a little bit more deeper in our lineup to where we can be better offensively like we were at one point. I think that's the thought process as well, because again, they made plays for Matt. They had Matt Chapman over at third base for a while, so they didn't have a need at third base. Now they have a need. They made plays to go get Nolan Arenado at one point. They made plays to go get Chris Bryant. I think that was at one point when he was available before he went to Colorado. They made plays to go get top third baseman. Maybe now they're going to switch it and say, maybe we can go find a first baseman. It might be easier for us to go get a first baseman, put him over there, and we continue to have Guerrero be a third baseman and try to make sure that we get him to, lose the weight and be athletic over there and be able to be a little bit deeper with our lineup. I think that's the process. But if a team does look like, say, they need a third baseman and they're willing to overpay, because that's what it's going to take to get Guerrero Jr. in the first place, the versatility is very valuable. And I think that's partly what you're saying or what you're asking is, does this put it in the mind of teams that he can do both? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it's more of the Blue Jays need more so than putting him out there for trade bait.
JG, we're going to go through 10 names right now, and you're just going to buy or sell. Buy or sell, they are with their current team after the trade deadline this season. This was a list that was compiled over on Bleacher Report and CBS Sports. The first name we're going to talk about is Sonny Gray, currently with the St. Louis Cardinals.
So buying that he stays and selling that he goes.
Selling that he goes.
I buy that he stays in St. Louis. They're being a little bit more competitive right now. They've been on, 7 of their last 10 they've won. They're kind of getting things a little bit in the right direction. I don't think there's a chance. I think they're trying to build. They're trying to get themselves where they were at one point in their history over the last 5 to 10 years. They're adding pieces that make sense, and I think keeping Sonny Gray as your ace makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to buy that he stays in St. Louis.
This third baseman can opt out and become a free agent at the end of the season, which makes things always stickier when it comes to the trade deadline. That is Matt Chapman with the San Francisco Giants. Obviously, they have underperformed so far, and you have to look at with him and be like, well, what is he going to do next season? And if you think you're going to lose him, JG, is he someone that you would try to move, buying or selling Matt Chapman?
The issue for Chapman is just still his bat. And I don't know how many, again, you're going to get a top third baseman defensively, but he's been inconsistent throughout his career in the batter's box. I think with the Giants being what they're kind of floating as a 500 team, which is kind of what they were expected to be, they're not going to be a team that's going to challenge the Dodgers. I could see, I'll go ahead and say sell. I think the Giants will look to push and make a move to at least get some prospects out of him, especially since we know they're not going to be competitive with Blake Snell going in the IL again right now. It does take a hit that I think they're going to try to make a push to say, hey, what's out there for Matt Chapman that we can make a trade at the deadline and try to get some maybe 2 prospects back for. I'll sell. I'll sell that he will not be in San Francisco throughout the season.
Let's talk about the Cardinals again. Let's talk about their first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt.
Kind of the same. I buy that he stays in St. Louis. They're being a more competitive team right now. They're not out of it in the division. I think they're building, especially if they continue to press the Brewers more as they get going into the summer. I don't see a sell off in St. Louis makes a ton of sense, especially someone with like Goldschmidt, who has been your leader since he came over, since he took the de facto first base job away from Albert Pujols. And it's kind of been the heir apparent at that position for the Cardinals. It doesn't make a lot of sense to move Goldschmidt, so I think I'll say I buy instead that he stays in St. Louis.
Not sure why this guy's on the list. He hasn't even pitched yet this season, and I feel like his team would have to completely collapse in the next month for this to even be an option. But let's talk about Max Scherzer and the Texas Rangers. He hasn't pitched yet. He hasn't moved a lot the past couple of seasons, though, so I think that's why his name makes it on here. He is someone that tends to be tossed around at the trade deadline as that one piece to push for a title. JG, he will certainly be rested come the trade deadline. The question is, will he be ready to pitch?
Yeah, I'm not sure why he is on this list. I don't see a team really making a push at this point for a 40-year-old. Or he will be 40 in July, 40-year-old pitcher who hasn't pitched at all this season. I don't see why that would be a move you would want to make at this point, again, especially as he's over the last couple of years has had arm issues. He hasn't survived through the season. I know he's going to join in the second half, but with the amount of problems he's had to his arm, I don't see there's a reason that he will get traded and the team was going to we got to get Max Scherzer. I think he does stay in Texas. I'm buying that he will remain with the Rangers throughout the season.
Another player who can opt out after this season, it was a messy offseason. It has not been a good start for him with his new team. That is Blake Snell. He's had the adductor injury. He has a groin injury right now. He hasn't been pitching well aside from those injuries, and part of that was he waited so gosh darn long to sign with the team in the first place. He can opt out this winter, which, I mean, if it keeps going this way, he probably will, but maybe he won't, JG, because what's his market going to be if he does opt out, if he doesn't actually pitch well at some point this season? Is there any chance that if he does get healthy in July and he has a couple of quality starts, the Giants just look at it and say, we got to get something for him. He's not coming back next season, and they'll move him for a bag of chips at that point?
I don't see there's a reason that he opts out, especially with the numbers that he's put up. He's got a 9.24 ERA or 9.51 ERA with a 1.94 WHIP. Injured twice now, so this season it doesn't make it. We already know what the market is for him, and we saw it at 30 years old. Now he's going to be 31. He's 31 now. He'll be 32 in December. Are we going to, at this point, are we going to think that Blake Snell is going to get a bigger contract as he's a year older from the process he went through? I don't think that's the case. I think the realistic side is he's going to opt into his contract and stay in San Francisco for the next 2 years and be able to, hopefully increase his value from there. I don't really think at this point there's a trade market for Blake Snell with the amount of injuries that he's had. You can say the potential's there if he gets himself back into shape, but he hasn't been able to be in shape. So where is the hope that you can say in time he will be back to what we saw him as the NL Cy Young winner last year? I don't think he's got the time to do that. You're hoping in the offseason he'll be able to get healthy and get in shape and be ready for spring training, which he was not this past season. So at this point, it doesn't make sense for either side where you're not going to get the value of Blake Snell in a return in a trade. And it doesn't make sense for Blake to opt out and think, well, I can get more money on the open market again. Let's go that way. I think he stays in with an opt-in, and I don't see the Giants making the trade. I'm buying that he stays in San Francisco.
But hey, you know what? If you're looking for silver linings, the Giants had a weekend this past weekend when they're like, this is what it would have looked like if Aaron Judge came to us. Just him crushing home runs left and right in their home ballpark. It was great, JG. As a Yankee fan, it was great drama watching him get booed and just take balls out of the park.
Well, you see why I hate Yankee fans and how they have one little bit of success And they are the most. It's the Yankee fans are worse than Cowboy fans with the arrogance about who they are. Just because, and they will win throughout the regular season this year. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Chris, because I bet you this is your expectation. You will win and dominate the regular season, but with the team that you have, still they won't win in the postseason. You lose, and we'll see. It'll be the most ironic thing again, because we saw this with Aaron Judge with his MVP season, with the record-setting home run record season he had in the American League, and he got booed in the postseason.
Yeah, we're very fickle. We're fickle.
Could you not see if Soto goes 0 for 9
he'll get
in
booed.
A postseason series, they're going to boo him?
He will. 100%.
And he'll be a free agent at the end. You don't think he'll remember that?
And then they'll be upset. We'll be upset. We're like, well, why didn't he come back? Well, because the last time we saw him, we booed him off the field.
Booed him out of the ballpark.
Do we agree the Mets are trading Pete Alonso?
Yes, I believe that's the case. It's going to be the case. It's the worst kept secret as far as how Cohen has continued to act out on Twitter. Basically, going a full admission that they are selling. It's a matter of when, not if, and what the value of Alonso is going to be when they do make that trade. But yes, Pete Alonso, I'm selling that he'll be in Queens throughout the season. He'll be a trade piece when it gets to the deadline.
You already gave us your opinion on Vlad Guerrero Jr., so we'll skip over him and we'll go to his teammate. How about Bo Bichette? Are they going to move Bo?
I actually think Bichette will get traded. I think there's a little bit more value of Bichette than there is of Guerrero at the moment, and what he provides offensively and what he does provide defensively too. If it wasn't, again, he doesn't get the fanfare or the national media hype as much as someone like Bobby Witt does, but Bo Bichette's a really good overall player, and he was a great hitter who leads the leagues in hitting at here and there, and has been very competitive in the box. And I think he's a little bit underrated defensively. We would have conversations of him being part of one of the best middle infielders in the game if we had a little bit more positivity around the Blue Jays and whatnot. As far as and I think if he wasn't in the shadow of Vlad Guerrero, no pun intended, but if he wasn't around that, then we would see a little bit more of Bo Bichette being talked about in the national side. But I do think that he has the value that the Blue Jays will say, yes, we're going to go ahead and make a trade, especially that there's a team that's going to offer what they want, what makes the Blue Jays happy in the market. So I do actually think Bo Bichette does get traded at the deadline.
We got two more. Let's go to the pitching side of things. The Marlins they're the Marlins. Jesus Luzardo, we've heard his name pop up in the offseason. We've heard it pop up all throughout the season so far. Will they finally move him?
Yes. When you look at someone like Luzardo, you know the potential, what he is. And again, it's just more of bad team, bad environment, pitching not great. Get him out of there, and we can see what he does on a bigger stage. We saw that with Pablo Lopez when he was in Miami. He had okay numbers. He wasn't great, but he put him in Minnesota, an environment that was more competitive for him, and he took off and he became the number one. And he was a strong number 2 behind Sonny Gray last year, and has pitched really well at times for the Minnesota Twins. Continue. So I think if you get him out of the environment, you can get a really good pitcher, and I think a team is going to. We know the Marlins are going to accept basically any offer that's out there. They're not going to push today. We need a top dollar type of package. They'll take a couple prospects, maybe one top 15 prospect, and then 2 mid-level prospects probably can get them, and you can make that move. So I do think the Marlins will move Jesus Luzardo, and we could see a better Luzardo going forward into the season in a better environment.
Last one, JG, is Luis Robert Jr. with the Chicago White Sox. I want to point out that when he's healthy, he has a slugging percentage right around 500. That's on par with Austin Riley and Jose, I'm better than Barry Bonds Ramirez. When he is healthy, he is an absolute stud. What would he even be worth if he were available? And do you think they would make him available?
At this point, yeah, I do. I do think that he will be made available. I don't know what the value of what you're going to get for him, because again, he's not put up great numbers. You're basically making a trade off of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you threw in Austin Riley's name as far as comparable numbers at times, because that's who I can envision making a trade for is the Atlanta Braves. They've made a move with the White Sox in the offseason once. He has similar numbers. If we remember in 2021 when Ronald Acuna went down, he has similar numbers to what Jorge Soler was with the Kansas City Royals. It's a low 200 batting average. The power numbers weren't great at that time. He had dealt with some injuries a little bit early in the year, and you're knowing the culture you have in the Braves, whereas the lack of culture in Chicago, you put him in the environment with around Ozzie Albies, around Austin Riley, around Michael Harris, around Travis d'Arnaud, and you can say this is the winning side of baseball that you have not experienced in your career. And that was what carried a guy like Jorge Soler, who did not experience that throughout his career with the Royals. And he did what he needed to do. You put him, you can treat him basically like as Jorge Soler and put him in the top of the order and just say, be a power hitting outfielder that's batting leadoff for us. And we can continue to go from there. I think that's a better play than for the Braves to make that move. And I think it won't take a lot. You have a couple pitching prospects that if you're the Braves that you can add to a deal. I think Bryce Elder being one who's got major league experience, probably pitching himself out of Atlanta in the prospect rotation. You can throw in maybe a Spencer Schwellenbach, who had pitched really well in his debut last week. He'll get another start this week. And then you can throw in maybe 2 mid-level AA prospects in the package to get a Luis Robert. I think that would be a very enticing package that the White Sox would consider and to make this move. So, yes, I do think Luis Robert does get traded around the deadline or a little bit maybe before the deadline. And I think a team like the Atlanta Braves would be the team that really pushes to make that move to acquire Robert.
Well, you heard it here first. If it goes down, Mo and I are going to be coming to you for all the inside baseball trade knowledge moving forward. JJ, we appreciate having you on. We'll see you later on in the week, all right?
Sounds good. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, Mo, let's talk a little NFL, shall we? So CJ Stroud, young quarterback in the NFL, he was asked a question yesterday. It was an interesting question. He said, or not he said, he was asked, would you rather have the career of Eli Manning or Aaron Rodgers? And he said Eli. And people are upset about it, Mo. But if you look at it, let's not get too caught up in stuff. Let's look at the facts. Eli is a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, and he took down Tom Brady and the Patriots twice. And one of those teams, you could argue, is one of the greatest regular season football teams of all time, in that Patriots team with Randy Moss on it. They had an undefeated regular season, and they were looking to become only the second undefeated team in the history of the NFL, and Eli was part of stopping that. Now, obviously, the other side of it, Mo, is that, Aaron has one, so it's 2 Super Bowls to 1 Super Bowl. Aaron has a crap ton of MVPs. I believe he has 3 of them. And Aaron is renowned as one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. If you're making a top 20 list, I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers is going to be in there every single time. Eli is probably not going to touch a top 20 list, and I think rightfully so. So, Mo, I ask you, let's take out the politics of it, if you will. Let's take out the darkness retreats. Let's take out the prickliness that is Aaron Rodgers and just look at the career on the field. Would you rather be Eli or would you rather be Aaron?
That's an interesting question. So I guess what Stroud was going for, I'm thinking in how he was thinking. He was about winning.
Right.
And he'd rather have the 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. I get that. And yet, isn't Eli still like a fringe Hall of Famer? Like, he's not like, I don't think he's first ballot. If he gets in, he's not first ballot. Whereas Aaron Rodgers, whatever you think about him, just as a football player, he's just walking in first ballot.
Correct. Red carpet.
So I think I would rather have Rodgers' career.
I'm with you. I think those 2 Super Bowls are great. Who knows? Aaron could win one this year and get to the 2, and now the Super Bowls are the same. But when you look at the NFL 20 years from now, when people are talking great quarterbacks, is Eli's name in that conversation? And I don't think it is. Because yes, he has 2 Super Bowls, but no one's going to go that deep 20 years from now when they're just saying, who are the best quarterbacks of the last 30 years? Aaron's going to be in there 10 out of 10 times. Somebody might. And you know what Eli is, Mo? Eli is that, well, what about Eli Manning? He's that one where like you have the list and now you're just trying to wrap up the segment. So you're pulling at names that could be fringe people.
Sure.
That's what Eli is. He's the fringe name. Mo, I don't want to be the fringe name.
No.
I want to be the guy that's in the conversation.
Yeah, I want to be the guy that somebody would actually put my name right up there with Elway, right up there with Peyton Manning. I want to be in that company. That matters more to me. I mean, you want to win, but I think in the perfect scheme of things, Aaron's won a Super Bowl. He's won multiple MVPs. And just from the standpoint of his overall numbers and stuff, blown away. It's not even close. If you look at Eli Manning and strip away the 2 Super Bowls, his numbers aren't impressive at all. They're not. They're more negative than positive. I think he's one of the, in terms of touchdown and interception, he's much higher on the interception level. So, yeah, I'd much rather have Aaron Rodgers' career because, like you said, I want to be in that conversation 20, 30 years. I want somebody arguing for me like, I don't know, man. I know Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl, but I think you should, right? Like let's be honest. You and I both acknowledge how great Dan Marino is. He ain't got no Super Bowls. And he's and that guy's in the conversation with no Super Bowls. I'm just saying.
Correct.
I'm just saying.
And people say when it comes to the prettiest football ever thrown, you could argue it's Marino or Rodgers. One in 1A as far as just the arm talent alone. So I agree. I'm with you. I'm going Rodgers 10 out of 10 times. Let's talk a little NBA. A news report came out yesterday that the 76ers have 4 names in mind, Mo. According to this report, it was some paper in Philadelphia. Paul George is their main focus going into the offseason. And then also on the back burner is LeBron James, Jimmy Butler, and Brandon Ingram. So 2 questions for you. 1, of those 4 names, should Paul George be their main focus like this article is alluding to? And 2, of those 4 names, who do you think would be the best fit to get the 76ers into the finals next season if they were to land them?
Well, let me start with the best fit. The best fit would be LeBron. He's still the better player.
Sure.
He's still the better player. And he would make life easier for Maxey and Embiid. So he's the best fit, but let's be realistic. He's not going there. so I get why they say, well, Paul George is their number 1 target and LeBron's the back. He's on the back burner because he's not coming anyway. But I think Paul George is an excellent fit for them because he gives you 2 things. He's going to give you an elite perimeter defender. And he also has the personality, I think, that can blend well with Maxey and Embiid because Paul George is not an alpha. He's not that guy. So I think it would be an easy transition for him to be. I would call him the 3rd option, but if you want to say he and Maxey are code number 2s, I think they're more compatible with him. Jimmy, they had a lot of success with already in the past, obviously, and Embiid loves Jimmy. But Jimmy's he's an out and out alpha. If he comes to that team, you can say Joel Embiid, but that would be Jimmy Butler's team. My guess is because of what they did the first time around, they've got little to no shot to get Jimmy. You would have to trade for Jimmy. And I've said this before, you're dealing with Pat Riley. What a value do you have to offer? You have Maxey and Embiid. You're not trading them. You're not making a deal with Pat Riley. That's pretty easy. Brandon Ingram, I think the Pelicans are looking to move off of him. Talented guy, but I don't think he'd be a good fit in Philly because I just don't think he has enough dog in him. Like that city would eat Brandon Ingram alive.
You're not kidding. You are not kidding. There was times where he didn't have enough dog in him to be on the Pelicans.
Right.
Let's just say what it is.
That is a rough city.
Philly would eat him alive.
Absolutely. And they would kill Daryl Morey. Like, why'd you bring this guy? We are
Right.
like, what are you doing, Maury? Yeah, I think Paul George is the perfect fit. The only question is, what kind of contract can they come to an agreement on? Because he's looking for a max. I have to believe the Sixers don't want to give him a max. Maybe they meet in the middle and he gets a mini max, a 3-year deal, or something to that degree. But other than that, he is the perfect fit for them going forward. And immediately you get a Paul George to go with Embiid and Maxey. Yeah, you're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the East. So I think it's an excellent fit going forward.
Let's wrap it up with a little wrestling talk here, Mo.
Wrestling.
AEW champion Swerve Strickland. He is making the headlines because he said that he thinks the time is now for AEW and WWE to work together and have some sort of cross-promotional something. Somebody from AEW appear on WWE TV, or someone from WWE appear on AEW TV. He said with the way that Triple H is running things over there right now, and he thinks that Tony Khan would be open to it. He thinks this is the time for business to get done. I respect Swerve. I love the fact that Swerve is their champion over in AEW, Mo, but I couldn't disagree with him more. WWE lives rent-free in the head of Tony Khan. Everything that he does, and mostly it is stupid things that he does, is all because he is fighting this battle that doesn't exist with WWE. AEW is not on the same footing as WWE is. No matter how many times Tony Khan wants to tell you that they are rivals, you simply just operate in the same universe. You are the comparisons start and end with you are both wrestling companies. That's it.
True.
Once we get past the fact that you are both wrestling promotions, it all goes to the side of WWE. You can talk all you want about ratings, 18-4. Talk all you want about it, Tony, because at the end of the day, WWE is a conglomerate in the entertainment space, and AEW is just a wrestling promotion. So do I think under the leadership of Triple H that this would be a great time to see things like that? Well, absolutely. We just saw the TNA Knockout Champion show up on NXT this past week. That's amazing. That is the TNA Knockout Champion is going to be challenging the NXT Women's Champion. That's amazing. Yes, Triple H is going to be open to business. Mo, I just don't think Tony's going to be open to business. Or if he is, Mo, I think it's going to start and end with, well, my guy's going to win. How do you want to do it?
Right.
And I think that's going to be the conversation.
And that's why Triple H is going to be like, that's why we can't do business.
Right.
Because the way this works is we're bigger than you. We're more powerful than you. Our guy's going to win. How do you want your guy to win or lose, Tony? Let's be real. And Tony is anything but realistic. I would love it if you could see those kind of cross promotions, which would make great cross promotion matches. I'd love things like that. They used to do it back in the day. It's very rare now. I think Swerve, I like his sentiments and what he wants to happen, but he's not being realistic. Like, if you're WWE, you could do this, but you don't need to do this. They've got great storylines. They got the bigger stars, the bigger company. Like you said, they're a conglomerate. AEW, like WWE is wrestling and AEW is wrestling. It's a big, there's a gap. You know what I'm saying? Like there's levels to this. It's that simple.
Like let's be honest. Let's just take Swerve and Cody Rhodes. Swerve showing up on WWE TV. It's cool. It's a cool moment. Cody popping back into AEW as the champ. Like, that's not a moment. That is huge for AEW. You know what I mean? Like, that is needle moving if you are AEW. If Cody's going to come back to AEW and do any sort of a program with the Bucks or anything like that, that's money. That is, people are going to start. That is, you're going to see AEW's numbers spike because people who have never watched AEW are going to tune in to see what Cody is going to do when he returns to AEW. I don't think the numbers are going to spike that much if Swerve just showed up on WWE TV. Maybe if MJF showed up, I think that might be the bigger draw than Swerve. That's nothing against Swerve. But if Cody returned to AEW, you want to talk about ratings, Tony? You're going to get some ratings then, let me tell you. That would be
insane.
But what would have to happen is Cody would get buried. Tony Khan would be pinning Cody Rhodes on AEW. That's how that would go down. That would be the booking to make that happen. And Tony would be like, no, it's a great idea, Triple H. I'm going to pin him, and I'm going to become the WWE Universal Champion. And
and then by the end of the show, I'm going to relinquish the belt. I'll relinquish the belt back to you guys, but everybody's going to know that I pinned him.
It's good for business, Triple H. It's good for business.
Right.
Mo, great show on a Tuesday. Close us out, sir.
Appreciate you guys so much for joining Chris and I this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content that we have at Wire to Wire Sports. Hey, Wire to Wire Sports, we appreciate you very, very, very much.
Make sure you're back here, same time, same place tomorrow. Mo and I are going to do a little buy or sell on potential fits for free agents in the NBA. And I promise you, they're not all going to be Philadelphia 76er related, even though they seem to want the whole damn world. They're just like the Lakers. Every name is attached to Philly right now. Holy cow. But we got all of that and more. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network, and we will